Fleet Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of the Zephyrian scout vessel Whisper's Edge. His forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the holographic display. For 300 years, his people had explored the galaxy, cataloging and conquering every species they encountered. The process was always the same: scan, analyze, identify weaknesses, then demand surrender. No species had ever posed a real challenge. "Commander," called Chief Science Officer Kilana from her station, her voice carrying the usual boredom that came with routine scouting missions. "We have detected an unknown vessel at the edge of this system. The ship appears to be of unknown origin." Vextar's interest peaked slightly. Unknown ships were rare these days. Most civilizations in this sector of the galaxy had already been cataloged, conquered, or destroyed. "What can you tell me about it?" "The vessel is approximately 1,200 meters in length. It appears to be conducting some form of patrol activity. The design is unlike anything in our database." Kilana's tentacles danced over her control panel. "Shall I begin a deep scan?" "Proceed," Vextar ordered. "Follow standard protocol. I want a complete analysis of their technology, weapon systems, and defensive capabilities." Meanwhile, aboard the human battleship USS Titan's Fury, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, reviewing routine reports from his department heads. The ship was on a standard patrol mission along the outer rim of human space, checking for pirate activity and maintaining a visible presence in the area. "Captain," called Lieutenant Amy Carter from the tactical station, "I'm picking up some unusual sensor activity. Looks like someone's running deep scans on us from about 50,000 kilometers out." Morrison looked up from his tablet. "Can you identify the source?" "Unknown vessel, sir. The scanning pattern is unlike anything I've seen before. Very thorough, very systematic. They're really taking their time with us." "Interesting," Morrison said, leaning back in his chair. "How long have they been at it?" "About 10 minutes now, sir. They seem particularly interested in our power systems and weapons arrays." Morrison nodded casually. "Well, let them look. We've got nothing to hide. Besides, it might be some new species trying to figure out who we are. Keep monitoring and let me know if they try anything hostile." Back on the Zephyrian ship, Kilana was beginning to frown at her readings. "Commander, I'm getting some unusual data from the scan. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database." "Explain," Vextar said, moving to look over her shoulder at the displays. "Their power source is reading at levels that should be impossible for a ship of that size. The energy output suggests they're somehow containing and controlling a gravitational singularity, but that's theoretically impossible. No species has ever achieved stable containment of such forces." Vextar's expression darkened. In 3 centuries of conquest, the Zephyrians had encountered species with various technological approaches. Some relied on plasma weapons, others used kinetic projectiles, and a few had developed basic energy shields, but none had ever shown readings like this. "Continue the scan," he ordered. "I want to know everything about that ship." Aboard the Titan's Fury, Commander Tony Walsh was giving Ensign Lisa Brooks a tour of the engineering section. Brooks was fresh out of the academy and still adjusting to life aboard a battleship. "This is our main reactor," Walsh explained, gesturing to a massive cylindrical structure that hummed quietly in the center of engineering. "It's a controlled black hole system. We feed it matter, it gives us essentially unlimited power." Brooks nodded, trying to look like she understood the implications. "Is it safe?" Walsh chuckled. "Safe as houses. We've been using this technology for about 50 years now. The containment field has never failed, and even if it did, we have 17 different backup systems. Plus, Dr. Maria Santos over there has been working on some improvements to the efficiency ratings." Dr. Santos looked up from her workstation and waved, "Just trying to squeeze a few more percentage points out of the conversion process. We're running at about 98% efficiency right now, but I think I can get us to 99.2. Walsh turned back to Brooks. "Maria's being modest. She's one of the best theoretical physicists in the fleet. Last month she figured out how to synthesize antimatter directly from the quantum vacuum, cut our refueling time in half." On the Zephyrian ship, the scanning results were becoming more disturbing by the minute. Intelligence Officer Zorith was analyzing the structural data when he noticed something that made his blood run cold. "Commander," he called out, his voice tight with concern. "You need to see this. The scan has revealed their weapon systems." Vextar moved to Zorith's station. "What am I looking at?" "Their main armament appears to be some form of space-time manipulation device. According to these readings, They can create localized gravitational distortions, temporal fields, and what appears to be controlled tears in reality itself. That's impossible, Kilana said from her station. No species has ever weaponized fundamental forces to that degree. The readings don't lie, Zorath replied grimly. But that's not the worst part. This scan is showing dozens of these weapon systems, and according to the power distribution analysis, what we're seeing isn't even their full capability. They're running at minimal power. Vextar felt a chill run through his body. In all their conquests, the Zephyrians had never encountered anything like this. Their own weapons were advanced plasma cannons and particle beams. Their shields were sophisticated energy barriers. But this human ship seemed to treat the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. "Commander," Kilana called out urgently, "the structural scan has revealed something else. Their hull isn't made of any known material. It appears to be some form of programmable matter that can adapt its properties in real time. And their shields? I don't think they're shields at all." "What do you mean?" "The energy readings suggest they're not deflecting attacks. They're converting incoming energy into additional power for their systems. It's like they're designed to get stronger when attacked." The bridge of the Whisper's Edge fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just an unknown species with advanced technology. This was something that challenged everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about the limits of science and engineering. Vextar stared at the holographic display showing the human ship. It looked peaceful enough, continuing its patrol route with no apparent concern about being scanned. But the data they were collecting painted a picture of a vessel that could probably destroy their entire fleet without breaking stride. "Continue monitoring," he ordered quietly, "but prepare the ship for immediate withdrawal. I have a feeling we may have encountered something beyond our ability to handle." The deep scan continued for another hour, and with each passing minute the Zephyrian crew became more unsettled. Chief Science Officer Kilana had given up trying to rationalize the readings. Every system on the human ship seemed to operate on principles that should have been impossible. "Commander," she called out, her voice strained, "I've completed the analysis of their propulsion system. You're not going to believe this." Fleet Commander Vextar approached her station, dreading what he might hear. "Report. They're not using conventional faster-than-light travel. The readings suggest they're somehow folding space around their ship. They're literally bending reality to move from place to place. The energy requirements for such a system should be astronomical, but they seem to be doing it with casual ease." Meanwhile, aboard the Titan's Fury, Dr. Maria Santos was having lunch with her colleague Dr. Steve Johnson in the ship's science lab. They were discussing their current research projects while reviewing data on their tablets. "I've been thinking about our navigation system," Santos said, taking a bite of her sandwich. "We could probably improve our jump efficiency by another 10% if we adjust the spacefold algorithms." Johnson nodded thoughtfully. "That would be nice. Though honestly, I'm more concerned about our antimatter reserves. We're down to about 60%. If we don't synthesize more soon, we might have to cut back on some of our experiments." "Oh, that's easy enough," Santos replied with a wave of her hand. "I can whip up a few kilograms from the quantum vacuum this afternoon. The new extraction process I developed only takes about an hour." Dr. Johnson smiled. "Sometimes I forget how routine this stuff has become. Remember when we thought antimatter production was impossible? That was like, what, 20 years ago?" Santos laughed. "Back when we were still using fusion reactors for primary power. Those were simpler times." On the Zephyrian ship, Intelligence Officer Zorath was analyzing intercepted communications from the human vessel. What he was hearing made his skin crawl. "Commander," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I've been monitoring their internal communications. They're discussing their technology as if it's completely normal." "What do you mean?" Vextar asked. "They're talking about creating antimatter from nothing, folding space like origami, and controlling black holes like they're discussing the weather. One of their scientists just mentioned that she needs to synthesize a few kilograms of antimatter this afternoon, like it's a routine task." Vextar felt his confidence crumbling. The Zephyrian Empire had built its power on technological superiority. They had always been the most advanced species in any encounter. But these humans were treating concepts that his own scientists considered theoretical fantasies as everyday engineering problems. "What else have you learned?" he asked. "Their defensive systems are even more disturbing," Zorath continued. Based on the communication patterns, it appears they don't just have energy shields. They have something they call adaptive matter fields that can change their properties instantly. And their hull material? Commander, I don't think it's metal at all. It appears to be some form of programmable matter that can reconfigure itself on the molecular level. Back on the human ship, Commander, Tony Walsh was explaining the ship's defensive systems to Ensign Lisa Brooks as they walked through a corridor lined with what appeared to be ordinary metal bulkheads. These walls aren't just structural, Walsh explained, tapping the surface with his knuckles. The entire hull is made of adaptive smart matter. If we take damage, the material automatically repairs itself and reinforces weak points. It can even change its molecular structure to better resist whatever type of attack we're facing. Brooks looked impressed. How does it know what kind of attack it's defending against? Built-in sensors throughout the material, Walsh replied. The whole ship is basically one big thinking machine. It monitors everything from radiation levels to gravitational fluctuations and adjusts accordingly. Sometimes I think the ship knows what's going to happen before we do. They paused at an observation window, looking out at the stars. The really amazing part, Walsh continued, is how it interacts with our shield system. Instead of just blocking attacks, the shields convert incoming energy into power for our systems. The more someone shoots at us, the stronger we get. That seems almost unfair, Brooks commented. Walsh chuckled. That's the idea. Though to be honest, most species we encounter are pretty peaceful. We haven't had a real fight in years. On the Zephyrian ship, the weapons analysis was complete and the results were terrifying. Tactical Officer Krendar had been studying the human ship's armament for hours, and his findings painted a picture of destruction capabilities beyond imagination. Commander, he reported, his voice shaking slightly, I've identified at least 47 separate weapon systems on that ship. But they're not conventional weapons. They appear to be devices that manipulate fundamental forces. Elaborate, Vextar ordered. Their primary weapons seem to create localized distortions in spacetime. They can generate artificial gravity wells, temporal displacement fields, and what appears to be controlled dimensional rifts. According to these readings, they could theoretically tear holes in reality itself. Kilana looked up from her station. That confirms what I'm seeing in their power distribution patterns. They're channeling energy in ways that shouldn't be possible, and the scary part is all these systems appear to be operating at minimal power levels. What do you mean? Vextar asked. I mean they're barely using any of their ship's capacity. Based on the energy patterns, I estimate they're operating at less than 5% of their maximum capability. This is them being casual. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. The Zephyrians had encountered thousands of species across the galaxy. Some had been primitive, barely achieving spaceflight. Others had been moderately advanced, with decent weapons and defenses. But none had ever shown capabilities that made Zephyrian technology look primitive by comparison. Sir, Communications Officer Velioth called out from his station. I'm detecting increased activity on their ship. Multiple systems are powering up. Vextar felt panic rising in his chest. Are they preparing to attack? Unknown, sir. But whatever they're doing, the energy readings are off the charts. On the human ship, Captain Morrison had decided it was time to take a more active approach to their mysterious observers. Amy, he called to Lieutenant Carter at Tactical. Run a standard reciprocal scan on our watchers out there. Let's see who we're dealing with. Aye, sir, Carter replied, her fingers dancing over her controls. Initiating deep scan now. The human scanning array came online, and within seconds it had penetrated every layer of Zephyrian shielding and mapped their ship down to the smallest detail. The scan was so thorough and so fast that the alien crew didn't even have time to react. Got them, sir, Carter reported. Unknown vessel, approximately 400 meters long. Technology appears to be plasma-based weapons, basic energy shields, and conventional matter-antimatter propulsion. Pretty standard stuff for this region. Morrison nodded. Any signs of hostile intent? Negative, sir. They seem more curious than aggressive, though their energy signatures are spiking quite a bit. I think we might have surprised them. Well, Morrison said with a slight smile, I suppose we should introduce ourselves. Open a communication channel. As the communication array activated, Vextar watched his worst fears come to life. The human ship had just scanned his vessel with technology so advanced it had bypassed their shields as if they didn't exist, and now they were opening communications. He realized with growing horror that his mighty warship, pride of the Zephyrian fleet, had just been effortlessly analyzed by beings who treated impossibilities as engineering challenges. Whatever these humans were, they represented a level of technological advancement that made his entire civilization look like children playing with toys. Intelligence Officer Zorath had been analyzing intercepted human communications for hours, and what he discovered made him wish he had never begun the scan. The more he learned about human thinking, the more terrified he became. "Commander," he called to Vextar, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "I need to show you something. The cultural analysis of these humans is disturbing." Fleet Commander Vextar approached Zorath's station with growing dread. "What have you found?" "I've been studying their communication patterns, their casual conversations, and their approach to problem-solving," Zorath explained, pulling up data streams on his display. "Commander, these beings don't think like any species we've encountered." "How so?" Zorath highlighted several intercepted conversations. "Listen to this exchange between their captain and first officer. They're discussing what they call routine peacekeeping operations." The recording played Captain Morrison's voice. "Beth, remind me to update the tactical protocols. That pirate problem in the Centauri sector got resolved pretty quickly." Commander Beth Taylor's response followed. "Yes, sir." Captain Kelly Turner's solution was elegant, temporarily reversing entropy in a localized field around their base. The pirates just stopped existing for about 30 seconds. When reality reasserted itself, they decided to find new careers. Morrison's laugh could be heard clearly. "I love solutions that don't require paperwork. No casualties, no prisoners, just a very effective demonstration of why piracy is a bad career choice." Vexitar stared at the display in horror. "They reversed entropy? As a law enforcement technique?" "That's just the beginning," Zorath continued. "I've identified a pattern in their thinking. When other species encounter a problem, they look for conventional solutions. When humans encounter a problem, they apparently ask themselves, which fundamental law of physics should we bend to solve this?" He pulled up another communication. "Here's their chief engineer discussing a minor maintenance issue." Commander Walsh's voice filled the bridge. "Lisa, we're having some trouble with the port thruster alignment. The quantum flux is about 2% off optimal." Ensign Brooks replied, "Should we recalibrate the field generators?" "Nah, easier to just adjust local space-time curvature around the thruster. I'll have it fixed in 10 minutes. Zorath paused the recording. "Commander, they're casually adjusting space-time to fix a thruster alignment problem. This is their idea of basic maintenance." On the human ship, Captain Morrison was having a routine discussion with his department heads about their patrol mission. The conversation would have terrified the Zephyrians if they had understood the full implications. "Jake," said Dr. Santos, looking up from her tablet, "I've been reviewing our defensive systems. I think we might be overdoing it a bit." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Well, our current loadout could theoretically sterilize about 12 star systems if we used everything at maximum power. For a routine patrol, that seems like overkill." Commander Taylor nodded in agreement. "Maria's got a point. Maybe we should dial back some of the more exotic weapon systems, save power for the really important stuff." "What would you recommend?" Morrison asked. Santos consulted her notes. "We could probably get by with just the gravitational manipulation arrays and the temporal displacement cannons. Keep the reality anchors active, obviously, but we probably don't need the dimensional rift generators online for pirate patrol." "Sounds reasonable," Morrison agreed. "Tony, can you power down the quantum vacuum weapons and the matter conversion systems?" "Already on it, sir," Walsh's voice came over the comm. "Though I'd like to keep the spacefold engines at full capacity. Never know when we might need to get somewhere quickly." Back on the Zephyrian ship, Zorath was analyzing more intercepted data, and his findings were becoming increasingly alarming. "Commander," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I've discovered something about their military doctrine that explains everything." "Report," Vextar ordered, dreading the answer. Human military strategy appears to be based on a simple principle: overwhelming response to any perceived threat. But their definition of overwhelming is an extreme. Zorath displayed a chart showing human fleet deployments. According to their communications, this single ship we're observing is considered light patrol duty. Their standard battle groups consist of vessels that could crack planets. Impossible, breathed Chilana from her science station. It gets worse, Zorith continued. I've found references to something they call the Geneva Conventions. It appears to be a set of rules they follow during warfare to limit civilian casualties and prevent excessive destruction. That sounds reasonable, Vextar said, confused. Commander, they needed to create rules to stop themselves from accidentally destroying entire civilizations during conflicts. The fact that they needed such rules suggests that their default approach to warfare is so destructive that they had to legally restrain themselves. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They were dealing with a species so militarily capable that they had to create laws to prevent themselves from being too effective in combat. There's more, Zorith added quietly. I've been analyzing their research and development communications. They treat scientific advancement like a competitive sport. Yesterday, one of their scientists successfully created artificial life just to see if it could be done. Today, she's working on a project to improve the efficiency of stellar fusion because she was bored. On the human ship, Communications Officer Ryan Clark was processing routine messages from Earth Command when something caught his attention. Captain, he called out, we've got an interesting message from Admiral Parker back at headquarters. What's the situation? Morrison asked. Apparently, Captain Turner's entropy reversal technique works so well that Command wants to add it to the standard training manual. They're calling it non-lethal temporal pacification. Morrison chuckled. Kelly always was creative. Anything else? Yes, sir. Dr. Franklin at the Research Division wants to know if we'd be willing to test her new project, something called a probability adjustment matrix. She says it can make good things more likely to happen and bad things less likely. Sounds useful, Morrison said. What's the catch? Well, sir, the side effects include minor alterations to local causality and occasional paradox formation. But she says the paradoxes are usually small and resolve themselves within a few hours. Morrison considered this. Tell her we'll try it out next month when we're in empty space. No point risking paradoxes near inhabited systems. Zorith, who had intercepted this entire conversation, turned to his commander with eyes wide with terror. Sir, they're discussing the casual manipulation of probability and causality like it's routine equipment testing. Vextar felt his world crumbling around him. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds by being the most technologically advanced species in their region of space. Their weapons were feared, their ships were unstoppable, and their intelligence was superior. But these humans made Zephyrian technology look like stone tools. Worse, they seemed to approach every challenge with an attitude of cheerful curiosity and absolute confidence that any problem could be solved by applying sufficient amounts of physics. Sir, called Communications. Officer Veloth. The humans are hailing us. Vextar's blood ran cold. On screen, Captain Morrison's face appeared on the main display, smiling warmly. Greetings. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Titan's Fury. We noticed you've been scanning our ship for the past few hours. Is everything all right? Do you need any assistance? The casual friendliness in Morrison's voice, combined with the obvious technological superiority his ship had just demonstrated, was the most terrifying thing Vextar had ever experienced. These humans could probably vaporize his entire fleet without breaking stride, and they were asking if he needed help. We are conducting routine observations, Vextar managed to say. Morrison's smile broadened. No problem at all. We're just on patrol in this sector. If you need anything, just let us know. We've got a few dozen other ships in the area, and we'd be happy to provide an escort if you need safe passage somewhere. The screen went dark, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in stunned silence. Dozens of other ships, each presumably as advanced as this one, and they were offering protection, not demanding surrender. Vextar realized with crystal clarity that his empire had just encountered something unprecedented, a species that was overwhelmingly superior in every possible way, but genuinely friendly. Somehow that made them even more terrifying. Chief Security Officer Dan Miller had been monitoring the alien scanning activity with growing interest, rather than concern. In his 15 years of service, he had encountered dozens of different species, most of whom were naturally curious about human technology when they first met. Captain, he called from his station, our visitors have been conducting a very thorough scan of our systems. Very systematic, very professional. They seem particularly interested in our power systems and defensive arrays. Captain Morrison looked up from his routine reports. How thorough are we talking? Complete deep scan, sir. They've been at it for almost 3 hours now. Whoever they are, they're very good at sensor technology, but not quite good enough. Miller's fingers danced over his controls. I've been running a passive analysis of their scanning methods. Interesting stuff. What can you tell me about them? Their technology is sophisticated but conventional. Plasma-based energy systems, standard deflector shields, matter-antimatter propulsion. Pretty typical for this region of space. They seem peaceful enough, just curious about us. Lieutenant Amy Carter turned from her tactical station. Sir, should I run our standard reciprocal scan? We've got a pretty good picture of their capabilities already from their scanning pattern, but a direct scan would give us complete technical specifications. Morrison nodded. Go ahead, Amy, let's see what we're dealing with. But keep it gentle. No need to rattle them. Aye, sir. Initiating standard reconnaissance scan. The Titan's Fury scanning array came online, and within seconds it had completely mapped the alien vessel. The human scanners were so advanced that they penetrated Zephyrian defenses like they were made of paper, creating a complete three-dimensional model of their ship. Its crew and every system on board. Scan complete. Sir, Carter reported. Unknown vessel. Crew of approximately 200 individuals. Technology level appears to be about 50 years behind our current standard. They're definitely not hostile. In fact, based on their energy signatures, they seem pretty nervous about us. Navigation Officer Carol White looked up from her station with interest. Captain, their ship configuration is really quite elegant. Classic exploration vessel design. Very efficient use of space. Any weapons? Morrison asked. Basic plasma cannon arrays, Carter replied. Nothing that would pose a threat to us, but decent enough for dealing with pirates or defending themselves against similar tech opponents. Their shields are actually pretty good for their technology level. Weapons Officer Greg Adams had been quietly analyzing the scan data. Sir, if it came to a fight, we could disable their ship in about 17 different ways without causing any casualties. Their power systems have some obvious vulnerabilities, and their shields wouldn't stand up to even our weakest weapons. But honestly, they don't seem aggressive at all. Morrison smiled. Good. I prefer peaceful encounters. Sam, can you identify their species or point of origin? Navigation Officer Sam Roberts consulted his database. Nothing matches in our first contact files, sir. This appears to be a genuinely new species. Based on their ship design and scanning patterns, I'd guess they're explorers or scouts. Well then, Morrison said, standing from his command chair. I think it's time we introduced ourselves properly. Helen, open a communication channel. Communications Officer Helen Price's fingers moved across her panel. Channel open, sir. Morrison activated the main view screen, his expression warm and welcoming. Greetings. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Titan's Fury. We noticed you've been scanning our ship for the past few hours. Is everything all right? Do you need any assistance? On the Zephyrian ship. The response to Morrison's friendly greeting was immediate panic. Fleet Commander Vextar felt his confidence completely evaporate as he realized the humans had not only detected their scanning, but had apparently been monitoring them the entire time. How did they know? Whispered Kilana from her science station. More importantly, Zoreth added grimly, how long have they been watching us watch them? Vextar managed to compose himself enough to respond. We are conducting routine observations. Morrison's smile broadened. No problem at all. We're just on patrol in this sector. If you need anything, just let us know. We've got a few dozen other ships in the area, and we'd be happy to provide an escort if you need safe passage somewhere. The communication ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in stunned silence. The casual mention of a few dozen other ships was terrifying enough, but it was Morrison's genuinely friendly attitude that truly unsettled them. Back on the human ship, Morrison turned to his officers. Well, they seem nervous but peaceful. Carol, are there any hazards in this system they might be worried about? Negative, sir. Clear space, no dangerous phenomena, though there have been some pirate reports in nearby systems. That might explain it, Morrison mused. They could be worried about raiders. Helen, send them our standard friendship and non-aggression greeting. Let them know we're not a threat. Already prepared, sir, Price replied. Transmitting now. The message that reached the Zephyrian ship was a standard diplomatic protocol that humans used when encountering new species. It included basic information about humanity, their peaceful intentions, and an offer of technological and cultural exchange. But to the Zephyrians, who had spent the last several hours discovering that human routine patrol ships could casually manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. The message read like a list of impossible capabilities being offered as gifts. "Commander," Zorith called out, his voice shaking. "They're offering to share their technology with us." Vextar read through the message with growing horror. The humans were casually offering to share scientific knowledge that would revolutionize Zephyrian civilization. Advanced materials, improved power systems, better propulsion technology. They were treating scientific breakthroughs that would take his people centuries to develop as simple friendship gifts. "Sir," Communications Officer Veloth reported, "they're also transmitting what appears to be a cultural exchange package. Music, literature, historical records? Anything useful for intelligence purposes?" Vextar asked weakly. Veloth studied the data streams. "Sir, they're giving us detailed information about their civilization. Population centers, government structure, military organization. Either they're incredibly naive or they're so confident in their superiority that they don't consider us a threat worth worrying about," Vextar finished grimly. On the human ship, Dr. Maria Santos had been reviewing the sensor data from their alien visitors. "Captain," she called over the comm, "I've been looking at the scan data from our new friends. Their technology is really quite impressive for their apparent development level." Morrison activated the ship's internal communications. "How so, Maria?" "Well, their scanning array is remarkably sophisticated. Not as advanced as ours, obviously. But they've clearly put a lot of thought into sensor technology, and their ship design shows some really clever engineering solutions. Think they'd be interested in some technological exchange?" "Oh, definitely. I could share some of our basic research papers with them. Nothing too advanced, just some fundamental improvements to their power systems and maybe some better materials science. Could probably boost their capabilities by a few decades worth of development." Morrison smiled. "Sounds good. Prepare a basic technology package. Nothing that could be weaponized, just improvements to quality of life and scientific capability." "Already working on it, sir. I'll focus on medical technology, improved manufacturing, and better energy efficiency. Should be ready within the hour." Back on the Zephyrian ship, Science Officer Kilana was analyzing the incoming data packages. What she found made her question everything she thought she knew about technological development. "Commander," she said weakly, "they're sending us scientific papers. The mathematics alone will keep our best theorists busy for years." "Weapons technology?" Vextar asked hopefully. "No, sir. Medical advances, industrial improvements, basic science." "But Commander, their basic science describes processes we consider impossible. This single data package contains enough information to advance our civilization by centuries." Tactical Officer Krendar looked up from his station. "Sir, I've been thinking about their casual mention of a few dozen other ships in the area. If each ship is as advanced as this one, then we're looking at a fleet that could conquer our entire empire without significant effort," Vextar finished. "But instead of demanding our surrender, they're offering to teach us how to build better hospitals." The bridge fell silent as everyone contemplated the implications. They had encountered a species so advanced that humanity's routine patrol represented more firepower than the entire Zephyrian military. And instead of conquest, the humans were offering friendship, protection, and technological gifts. It was the most terrifying thing any of them had ever experienced. Fleet Commander Vextar found himself in the most impossible situation of his career. For 3 centuries, the Zephyrian Empire had built its power on a simple formula: encounter new species, demonstrate superior technology, demand surrender or alliance. The process had worked flawlessly across hundreds of worlds. But now he faced a species that treated his most advanced warship like an interesting antique, and instead of demanding anything, they were offering gifts. "Commander," Intelligence Officer Zorith called out, his voice tight with barely controlled panic, "I've finished analyzing their cultural data package. Sir, we need to withdraw immediately and report this to High Command." "What have you discovered?" Vextar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Their entire civilization is built around principles we don't understand. They call it scientific method and peer review. Instead of hoarding technological advantages, they share discoveries freely among their population. Every breakthrough becomes available to everyone." Zorith pulled up data streams showing human research networks. "Commander, they have millions of scientists working together, sharing information instantly across their entire species. When one human discovers something new, Within days, every other human has access to that knowledge. That's impossible, breathed Science Officer Kilana. No species can advance that quickly. That's not even the disturbing part, Zorith continued. According to their historical records, they've gone from primitive chemical rockets to casual manipulation of space-time in less than 100 years. Their rate of technological advancement is accelerating. On the human ship, Captain Morrison was having a pleasant conversation with Dr. Maria Santos about the technology package she was preparing for their new alien friends. I've put together a nice introduction to our basic scientific principles, Santos said cheerfully. Some improved materials science, better energy storage, more efficient medical scanners. Nothing too advanced, just enough to help them improve their quality of life. How advanced is not too advanced for us? Morrison asked with amusement. Oh, just stuff we figured out 20 or 30 years ago. Programmable matter, quantum error correction, basic space-time manipulation theory. The really simple stuff, Morrison nodded. Sounds perfect. We don't want to overwhelm them. Communications Officer Helen Price looked up from her station. Captain, I'm receiving some interesting signals from our alien friends. Their communication patterns suggest they're pretty excited about our technology package. Excited good, or excited worried? Morrison asked. Hard to tell, sir, but they seem to be having a lot of intense discussions over there. Indeed, the Zephyrian ship was in chaos. Every department head was reviewing the human technology package, and the implications were staggering. Commander, Chief Engineer Morgan reported, his voice filled with awe. Their basic material science describes matter that can change its properties at will. According to these equations, they can create substances that are stronger than our best armor, but lighter than our insulation foam. Medical Officer Helena was equally amazed. Sir, their medical technology can apparently repair damage at the cellular level. They're casually describing techniques that could extend lifespans by centuries and eliminate most diseases. And this is their idea of simple gifts to new friends, Vextar said weakly. Tactical Officer Krendar had been analyzing the defensive implications. Commander, if they shared this technology with us, our entire military would become obsolete overnight. Not because they're giving us weapons, but because their civilian technology makes our best military hardware look primitive. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They weren't just encountering a superior species. They were meeting beings who had advanced so far beyond conventional limitations that they could accidentally revolutionize entire civilizations just by being friendly. Sir, Zorith added quietly, there's something else. I've been monitoring their internal communications. They're discussing us. What are they saying? Vextar asked. They're trying to figure out how to help us without causing cultural disruption. They're actually worried that their technology might advance our civilization too quickly and cause social problems. Zorith played back some of the intercepted human communications. Dr. Santos's voice filled the bridge. Jake, I'm concerned about information overload. These people seem to have a stable, functional society. We don't want to accidentally cause technological upheaval. Captain Morrison's response was equally thoughtful. Good point. Maria, maybe we should start with just the medical improvements and basic material science. Let them integrate those advances before we introduce anything more complex. Commander Beth Taylor added, we could offer to set up a gradual exchange program. Let them learn at their own pace instead of overwhelming them with everything at once. The Zephyrian bridge fell silent. These humans, who could apparently remake reality at will, were concerned about accidentally disrupting alien cultures with their generosity. Commander, Communications Officer Veloth called out. They're hailing us again. Captain Morrison appeared on the main screen, his expression warm and friendly. Hello again. We've prepared a basic technology and cultural exchange package for you. Nothing too overwhelming, just some improvements that might be useful. We were also wondering if you'd be interested in a gradual exchange program. Vextar struggled to find his voice. Exchange program? Sure. We could arrange for some of our scientists to work with your people, help you integrate new technologies at a comfortable pace. And we'd love to learn about your culture and history. Every species has unique perspectives that can teach us new things. The screen showed Morrison consulting a tablet. We've also got a couple of other ships in the area that could provide escort services if you're traveling through any dangerous regions. Space pirates can be a real problem in these outer systems. Vextar realized with crystal clarity that Morrison wasn't threatening or demanding anything. He was genuinely offering protection, technological assistance, and friendship to complete strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. "We would be honored to participate in such an exchange," Vextar managed to say. Morrison's smile broadened. "Excellent. I'll have our diplomatic team prepare some preliminary agreements, nothing binding, just frameworks for cooperation and mutual assistance. Oh, and we'll make sure to include some cultural materials. You'll love human music. We've got everything from classical symphonies to something called jazz fusion." The communication ended, leaving the Zephyrian crew staring at each other in amazement. "Sir," Science Officer Kilana said softly, "I don't think they understand how advanced they are. They're treating their impossible technology like it's perfectly normal." "No," Vextar replied thoughtfully. "I think they understand exactly how advanced they are. They just don't see any reason to use that advantage to harm others." Intelligence Officer Zorith was reviewing more intercepted communications. "Commander, I've been analyzing their military protocols. Their rules of engagement prioritize protection of civilians, minimization of casualties, and peaceful resolution of conflicts. They have weapons that could destroy star systems, but their primary goal is to avoid using them." Tactical Officer Krendar looked up from his analysis. "Sir, I've been thinking about their casual mention of escort services. They're offering to protect us from pirates. Ships that could probably conquer our entire empire are volunteering to serve as bodyguards for complete strangers." Vextar stood from his command chair and walked to the main viewport, looking out at the human ship continuing its peaceful patrol. "Signal High Command," he ordered. "Priority Alpha communication." "What should I tell them, sir?" asked Communications Officer Veloth. Vextar was quiet for a long moment. "Tell them we've encountered a species that has weaponized compassion itself. They're so advanced that they could conquer the galaxy without effort, but instead they're offering to teach us how to build better hospitals." He paused, watching the human ship in the distance. "Also tell them we're accepting their friendship offer, and recommend that we immediately update our first contact protocols to include unconditional cooperation with any human vessels we encounter." "Sir?" Veloth asked, confused. "Because," Vextar explained, "we've just met the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they want to hurt us, but because they're genuinely nice people, with impossible technology and unlimited patience. They're offering to solve all our problems, protect us from threats, and improve our lives just because they can." He turned back to his crew. "Do you understand how terrifying that is? They don't want to rule us. They want to help us become better versions of ourselves, and they have the power to actually do it." The bridge fell silent as everyone contemplated this. They had set out to catalog another primitive species for potential conquest. Instead, they had discovered beings who made their entire civilization look like children playing with toys, and who responded to that disparity not with conquest or condescension, but with offers of friendship and assistance. Somewhere in the distance, the USS Titan's Fury continued its routine patrol, its crew completely unaware that they had just accidentally revolutionized an entire empire's understanding of what it meant to be powerful.